What's up, guys? The Snowman here, another NFL rankings list today. I recently put out my top 10 quarterbacks of all time, so please check that out if you're interested. But today it's all about the wide receivers. Statistical dominance so key when comparing wideouts, but also how well they compared against their peers in their respective eras. My list is skewed towards modern times as passing has become more prominent, but let's take a look at my top 10 NFL wide receivers of all time. Starting off at number 10, say what you want about the off-field antics, but Antonio Brown, an impossible cover in his prime, the only receiver in NFL history to have 6 straight seasons with at least 100 receptions. In those 6 years from 2013 to 2018, Brown also had the most receiving yards in any 6-season span in NFL history. His career wasn't as long as most of the other greats, but you'd be hard-pressed to find someone who dominated more during the absolute peak of his playing days. Number 9, this is a complete and utter projection, but I love Justin Jefferson. He's still active, 25 years old. Yes, this is an all-time list, but I feel so confident we'll be coming back here in 5 to 7 years and moving Jefferson even higher up the list. I just look at him and see things that no one else in the history of the game can do. He can run every route, make every catch. Jefferson hasn't even played 5 full seasons yet, and he's already approaching 7,000 career yards and 40 touchdowns. He's number 1 in career receiving yards per game, and it isn't close at all. From young to old, Don Hudson, my number 8. If you don't know, Hudson was the game's first true elite wide receiver, a 2-time league MVP and 3-time champion with the Green Bay Packers throughout his career from 1935 to 1945. Just a trailblazer in every way imaginable. Nobody from his era recorded even 3,500 career receiving yards. Well, Hudson finished up with 8,000. You have to go to 1963 until someone finally surpassed him in yards. Hudson just so far ahead of his time. Marvin Harrison is at number 7, played for the Indianapolis Colts his entire career from 1996 to 2008. 8 straight years with Peyton Manning where Harrison had at least 1,100 yards and 10 touchdowns. In fact, Peyton threw 114 touchdowns total to Marvin. That's the number 1 QB receiver connection in NFL history. Harrison was the epitome of consistency and precision, known for his spectacular route running and sure hands as he helped spearhead some of the highest octane offenses ever. My 6th best wide receiver of all time is Seahawks legend Steve Largent, another player ridiculously ahead of his time. Nobody from the 1980s or before had as many catches or receiving yards as Largent. Largent quite literally the only bright spot in Seattle's first 30-plus years in the NFL. 8 seasons over 1,000 yards, which was unheard of back then. Led the league in receiving twice. Largent, a consummate pro, a Hall of Famer. He even has an award named after him that the Seahawks still hand out today. Top 5 now. Next up, none other than Larry Fitzgerald. 17 seasons from 2004 to 2020, all with the Arizona Cardinals. Fitzgerald's longevity is something to marvel at. He ranks 2nd all-time in both career receptions and career receiving yards. Fitz always seemed to play better the bigger the stage. In the 2008 playoffs, he had over 500 yards and 7 touchdowns. The only player in NFL history with 4 playoff games over 100 receiving yards in the same postseason. Also, fun fact about Fitzgerald, he has more career tackles than dropped passes. His hands were from another planet. Number 4 is the great Calvin Johnson. This one's solely based off peak performance, not so much longevity like Fitz. Megatron was known for his unmatched athleticism and imposing stature. Only played 9 seasons, all with the lowly Lions, but he did some incredible things, including breaking the all-time single-season receiving yards record with 1,964 yards in 2012. Simply put, in his prime, Johnson was unstoppable. Not even Dan Orlovsky and the 0-16 Lions could prevent him from finishing with 1,300 yards and 12 TDs in 2008. Megatron's 2nd all-time in career receiving yards per game, just an absolute beast. My 3rd greatest wideout is another alpha in Terrell Owens, played for 5 different franchises throughout his illustrious career from 96 to 2010. T.O. was a total showman who had a flair for the theatrics, elite physicality and athleticism, but also polished route running. The resume pretty simple for Owens, 3rd all-time in receiving yards, 3rd in receiving touchdowns with 153. T.O. was a big play waiting to happen, 5 times a first-team All-Pro, off-the-field behavior may have kept him from being even higher on this list, but wherever T.O. played, popcorn was a necessity. The second best, in my opinion, is Randy Moss, a very similar career arc to Terrell Owens, but just slightly better at every turn. Moss, best known for his work with the Vikings and Patriots, 156 receiving touchdowns, just barely ahead of T.O. for second, 4 first-team All-Pro appearances. Moss redefined the modern deep threat with his breakaway speed and agility, somehow top 5 in MVP voting in 1998 in his rookie campaign. Moss tallied over 1,300 yards in each of his first 6 years, just lightning in a bottle type production from the jump. Later with the 16-0 Patriots, he set the record for most receiving touchdowns in a single season with 23. That's a record that still stands today. And finally, we get to Jerry Rice, the greatest NFL wide receiver to ever live. Most GOAT arguments across all sports are fun. There's arguments to be made for multiple sides. However, there's really no conversation at all with the greatest receiver. Rice laps the field in just about every facet. Seriously, look at the stats. Most receiving yards ever, most receiving touchdowns, most receptions, a record 10 first-team All-Pros, led the league in receiving 6 separate times. He's a 3-time Super Bowl champion, most yards and touchdowns in the playoffs ever. Rice was on the All-Decades team for the 1980s and the 1990s. Simply unmatched work ethic, route running, and hands. Jerry, far and away the GOAT wide receiver. Thanks a lot for watching my top 10 wide receivers of all time video. Please leave a comment. I'd love to know who do you think I left out that I shouldn't have? Do you have a problem with any of the guys on my list? Please leave a comment and give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the Snowman Sports Media for more sports content. Cheers!